Now, genotoxicity, in genetics, genotoxicity describes the property of chemical agents that damage the genetic information within the cell, causing a mutation. So benzopyrene will cause a genetic mutation, which may lead to cancer. It doesn't mean it will, okay? It's just that it's genotoxic. In other words, it changes the structure of the gene. While genotoxicity is often confused with mutagenicity, all mutagens are genotoxic. However, not all genotoxic substances are mutagenic. In genetics, a mutagen is a physical or chemical agent that changes the genetic material, usually the DNA, and thus increases the frequency of mutations above the natural level. As many mutations can cause cancer, mutagens are therefore also likely to be carcinogens. Okay? But the point of this is that if a person weakens to the 380 in the clear, it does not mean they've got cancer. Okay? It means they've got a mutagen or a polymorphism. Okay? And we've all got that. So at some stage, we'll all weaken to the 380. If a person weakens to a polyaromatic hydrocarbon, which you got there, then be very careful that this person could have a cancer. Okay? All cancer cases weaken to polyaromatic hydrocarbons. So it's a wonderful marker. A little bit later, I'm going to give you another one, a more modern one, which is also a very good marker, because it's one thing that people always say, can you tell if a person's got a malignancy? And I say, well, not really, but there are some signs that we can say, well, this could indicate. But now you can at least determine if a person has, a compound or something which you're not sure whether it's reacting with them, whether it is reacting with them, and it's potentially carcinogenic. But it's interesting that there's lots of things you can test in our environment. DDT would be, a nice one. A lot of, as I say, the Roundup and all these other ones that they're now talking about are potentially carcinogenic substances. So that's the 380. So you can see, although you see that as violet, it's actually not violet. You think it's violet, but the light that's coming through the acetate, which you'll all get in the map, is what you can't see, but disperses in the plastic in that case. So this is benzopyrene. You see it's got 5 benzene rings. So our friend cytochrome P450, 1A1 and 1B1, will help to hydroxylate this to the hydroxylated derivative called an epoxide, which will then go on through a second set of cytochrome P450s to the less harmful hydroxylated derivative. Now these are examples of polyaromatic hydrocarbons. You see they're composed of different structures of the ring formation. Some of them have many rings like this one, and some of them are a bit like like beehives, don't they? Like combs in a beehive there. Okay, so you can now see polyaromatics known for their carcinogenic, mutagenic, and tetragenic properties. What happens is the light goes through one of these, but it goes through all of them, and because they've all got, you notice some of them have got double rings. There's the benzopyrene. You see they've got double bonds here, on here. That's what disperses the light. So as the light hits those 5 rings, it goes in different directions. And that's what Pop picked up. So it disperses the ultraviolet light, but only ultraviolet. Interesting, and only at 380 nanometers. So this is interesting, isn't it? Because some schools of thought are now saying, well, if 380 is so bad, what about if we pulse it in on a low dose? Could it be an antidote? Could you give the antidote to the 380 by pulsing 380 in on certain pulsations, certain frequencies? I haven't found it. If something weakens a person, I tend to favor the fact that that is not a good substance. Okay? So when a person weakens to 380, I would rather find the wavelength which negates that than saying, well, let's give it like a homeopathic in a dilute dose. I may be wrong, and in the future I may change my mind. But let's keep it sort of straightforward and say what weakens a person is wrong or bad for them, and what strengthens them is generally good, isn't it? So let's work along those pathways. So we know that reactive oxygen species occur in the body. They occur in the mitochondria with normal oxidative function. So for every molecule of energy that we produce, that every 100 we're going to produce perhaps 5 reactive oxygen species in the mitochondria. We increase the production of reactive oxygen species when we make a respiratory burst, which means when we've got an infection, our whole metabolism increases because our temperature goes up, and we produce more free radicals, which helps us to kill the microbes. We produce reactive oxygen species when we have phase 1 detoxification. Cytochrome P450, every molecule of a toxin produces 1 molecule of superoxide. And we produce reactive oxygen when we've got hypoxia. And this is really important because most of our problems, 50% of patients who come in are hypoxic. And therefore, if they're hypoxic, they've got low oxygen in their mitochondria. And that low oxygen in their mitochondria is stimulating the production of superoxide and other free radicals. So superoxide becomes reduced to hydrogen peroxide and then can be reduced to hydroxyl radical and or to water, molecular water. But we need them in a sense because hydrogen peroxide will go on to produce hypochlorides by the myeloperoxidase enzyme, which kills most of our cancer cells. And we can also, on this side with arginine, convert arginine with nitric oxide synthase into nitric oxide, which then merges with superoxide to form peroxynitrite, which is one of the most damaging of all the reactive oxygen species. Now, why am I talking about this? Is that each oxidative derivative, free radicals here, have an unpaired electron on their outer orbit, and they have different structures, but they give out, in the presence of light, different colors. That's interesting. There is a color, and this is well documented. You can go on the internet and find that superoxide gives out a particular color, hydrogen peroxide gives another one when you fire light into it. Now, all these enzymes, which I've underlined now, are all heme dependent. So, normal oxidative mitochondrial oxidation. This would be our cytochrome Cs and cytochrome C oxidase. Phase 1 detoxification, cytochrome P450. Myeloperoxidase, which makes hypochlorite, which kills the cancer cells. Catalase, which metabolizes hydrogen peroxide. NADH and other peroxidase enzymes, which prevent us going on to the hydroxyl radical. And inducible nitric oxide synthase are all heme-dependent enzymes. They've all got heme, which means they all can be affected by light. In other words, color, because color is an expression of the light. So we could stimulate all these enzymes with particular frequencies of light, which are now becoming more and more interesting as antibiotics are becoming less effective. People are now looking for blue lights to clear bacteria and red lights to stimulate healing and so on. It's a big business out there, and you need to be on the cutting edge of being able to say which light it is can stimulate which enzymes. Right, so according to Bruce Ames, each cell in our body suffers between 25,000 and 100,000 oxidative hits per day. That's a lot, isn't it? Each cell, okay? So it's not a matter when you eat chips that you're going to eat free radicals. You're actually producing that amount. And he came to that conclusion by measuring the oxidized deoxyguanosine from the DNA in the urine and dividing it by the number of cells in the body. Now, this is the mitochondria in the body, in the mitochondrial membrane, the inner one. And you'll see this is related to complex 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, what goes in here are protons and electrons from the Krebs cycle. And into complex 1 goes 2 electrons and 2 protons. So the protons build up in this the space between the membranes until at the end the concentration of protons is so high, this is called a proton pump, which converts ADP into ATP. But en route, we've got 2 electrons at complex 1, and we've got 2 electrons go in at complex 2, which means we've got 4 electrons. They're dodgy things on their own, because when you go to oxygen and you put another electron, you get superoxide immediately, you see. So we have to carry those 2 electrons from complex 1 and 2 to complex 3. And the carrier is called coenzyme Q10. So CoQ10 works here. So is giving CoQ10 a good idea? Yes, for some people who can't make it. No, for people who can make it. Because I'm of the favor of the opinion, if you give CoQ10 when you don't need it, your own body making it will become inhibited. Okay? So people are taking massive amounts of CoQ10, aren't they, at the moment? 200, 300, 400 milligrams. And you think the mechanism of how the body actually makes CoQ10 must be shutting down, because it's saying, I don't need to make any of this anymore. So when they come off it, what happens? You know, they've got no CoQ10, and then they've got no electron transport covering, so they're going to get a big reactive oxygen species blowout. Okay, so I don't think CoQ10 is a good idea prophylactically. I think if it muscle tests that you need it, then that's fine. So you'll see that the CoQ10 here, this way, is an electron carrier. So people take it to get more energy because it helps the whole electron transport work better. Now, what takes the 4 electrons from complex 3 to complex 4 is called cytochrome C, which is a heme-dependent enzyme. And then that pops the 4 electrons onto oxygen, and makes water, providing all 4 go on in one foul swoop. We'll come on down. So when we add 1 electron to oxygen, it makes superoxide, or 1 dot on the outside. When we add 2 electrons, we get hydrogen peroxide. When we add 3 electrons, we get hydroxyl radical. And when we add 4 electrons, we get water and molecular oxygen, which is the best fuel that we can do, the waste product. So as long as we add all 4 electrons on at complex 4, everything's fine. But if we add them on one at a time, univalently, well, then we'll get nuclear radiation or free radicals being generated from there. So what's this to do with color? Is because each reactive oxygen species has a color associated with it. So when you find a person weakens in a minute to a color, you of course always assure you that they've got a high level of a specific reactive oxygen species. They're glowing. This is what Pop found when he increased the emission, the luminosity as it's called, of the patient in a dark room, and they have cameras in Germany which will increase this emission out of the body, the luminosity, they can see it. And interestingly, although the color remained the same, the width of it coming out of the body varied every 2 hours. 2 hours? That's meridians, isn't it? And that was in cycles. So if they had a blue haze around them, this blue haze would pulsate, if you like, in 2-hour periods. They didn't know what it was. The theories are it comes out of the DNA. So the inside, this energy is coiled inside some spiral field force inside the structure of the DNA. I don't go along with that myself, because light is a form of energy which can come interchange with heat. And whenever we got heat, we get light, and we got light, we generate heat. So my feeling is the only place that the body can produce light or massive amounts of energy is the mitochondria, because that's where we produce energy. We don't produce energy in the nucleus, although we do have DNA in our mitochondria. But it makes sense to me it's in the mitochondrial membrane at probably complex 4, where all the energy is actually produced, complex 4 and 5. That's when we glow. And if we glow with a color, it's not good. Okay, it means we're out of balance. So if you glow with red, and you glow with green, and you glow with purple, that's not saying we're all together healthy, okay? Because you may be weakening into superoxide, hydrogen peroxide, peroxynitrite perhaps. When you see depictions, people say, oh, is this the aura? The answer is yes. But with the aura should be a white light. Okay? You don't see depictions of the Buddha or Jesus or any other holy person with red shooting out of them or green. You know, people say, well, red means they're angry, or green means they're envious, and so on. No, you see a white light, and that's what should come out of the body. In the same way that the light coming into us should be a white light from the sun, is the same that what we should glow out. But if we glow out with a color, it means we're off center in some way. And we'll see it reflects directly with the meridian. So if we take all the colors, the monochromic colors, right from the beginning of the visible spectrum, 700 and something, taking into account that after 645, we don't see anything different. So let's start at 645. And every 5 nanometers, we do a reading down to 385. We will end up with 54 acetates of each wavelength. Now, the human eye can't detect 2.5 beyond 2.5. So if you have 2.5 one way, 2.5 the other, you get 5 nanometers in total. So it's like a keyboard, really. So if we take 54 monochromic colors, monochromic means it's single wavelength of colors, you're going to cover the whole of the visible spectrum. Okay? So if we start here, 645 to 770, and go through, we'll see here, everything at 645 downwards to here is orange. But it's different shades of orange, as you can see. Now see how small yellow, that's true yellow, okay, is just one slide covers you for yellow. This is orange still, this is yellow, and now we're coming into green. See how it subtly changes green? And then we come in all through the 500s is all green. Massive. Green is a massive color when you do that. And then we get to 510, 505, still green. And then suddenly, between 505 to 500, it's gone turquoise. Okay, it's coming into the blue now zone. See how quick it was? A very small amount. Actually, it changes there. And it's very difficult to see some of these changes when you look at the rainbow. I mean, I spent time looking at a rainbow. It's very difficult to say, where is that indigo that people say is in there? Or where is yellow? I'm not too sure, you know, because it's so close sometimes, because yellow is very, very small. And turquoise is really part of the blue. But this would be turquoise blue, and that would be turquoise green, really. So it's very, you know, somewhere in there is somewhere midway between the two. And then by the time we get really into the 400s, we're in the blue zone. Okay? So here we see down here 450, that's the same one as the carbon monoxide. 430 down here was cyanide. And then we go on down into the violets. So really violet starts at about 400, 400, 395, 390, 385 would be violet. And then bang, it's beyond human vision. So this last one, 380, is beyond what you can see. So you see the color, but you don't see the light that actually comes through that. Okay, so that's the one that we use for the polymorphisms. So if we layer each monochromic color into 7 acetates, because it can take a long time to go through 54 acetates. I've done it for a long time with patients, and once you've done it, it's quite interesting because they don't tend to vary from it, but it's a long process. So what I started doing is I'm putting banks of them together. So I put all the orange ones together, all the yellow, which was one, all the greens, all the blues, all the violets, and so on. And what I did is I put a powerful light torch through them to stack them together. So in that bunch of perhaps 7 acetates or so would be the color wavelength I was after with the person. Okay? So I thought, right, instead of producing 54, let's produce 7. And what we'll do is we'll make a composite and blend those on Photoshop and put all of those together. So we had a beautiful, Gary set it all up for me, where we Photoshopped all the wavelengths within the red, all the wavelengths within the yellow and so on, together to make 7 monochromic colors. Okay? So these were beautiful because what it was it gave you the red, orange, yellow right the way through with their wavelengths. So the original ones that we did, the 7 original ones, which Philip and Hilary did together, we took a mid-range. So say in the green case, we put 550 in there, and we only took 550, but we missed if someone was 545 or 560, okay? So by taking in 505 to 590 and layering those together, we won't miss somebody who's in the green zone, okay? So that was all what we did is we put all 7 colors and amalgamated them into 7 acetates. So layering each of the monochromic, we did then the complementary colors. So we did the opposite colors to each one. So that gave us then an opposite to red, an opposite to green, and so on. So this was the layering of them into 7. So these would be your yin meridians, and the other ones would be your yang meridians. And that's what we now got, 14 beautiful acetates for each meridian. Okay. So biophotons, we discovered, the biophoton color should be the same as the definitive meridian. So let's get our colors out now. So let me, you get them out, you get your patient. Have you done them into yin and yang?
Yes.
Oh, fab. Okay, that's what I was going to do. So, what's the first name?
Debbie.
So Debbie's case, Debbie showed a definitive meridian of a spleen. Okay. So what we found is when she therapy localized the spleen on its own, it didn't show, which meant she's out of sync with her definitive meridian. So what we can do now is we can put on and see where she is. Okay. So what bank have you got there?
The prime.
Yes. Okay. So the yang ones.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So if you put that bank on over her tummy button. Okay. So this is all the yang colors. Get the torch. Now this torch, don't fire it at anybody. Keep it down. No. This torch is 2,000 lumen. Okay. Now this torch is very, very powerful. Okay. So you don't shine it at somebody's eyes. Okay. These torches are illegal in America because when I taught this at ICAK, they can only get 1,000 lumen max, because they're considered to be, dangerous if they're too high. Now the ones we originally got were 2,200 lumen, but now they're only doing 2,000, I think, on Amazon. Okay, you buy them on Amazon. We've got a stack of them here. Most important thing, if you get one, and you'll all want one, is there's a rechargeable battery, okay, in there. And in the battery, it's got a cellophane cover. Take the cellophane cover off before you charge it, all right? Because I sat mine for 4 hours and couldn't understand why it didn't charge. Okay? And then in the small print, as it always is take the cellophane cover off before charging. But it was so fine I couldn't see it. So when I found it, it charged up. And I've had this one for several months, and I've never recharged it. So it's really good value, and I use it on almost every single patient for a few minutes, and I use it for therapy. But diagnostically, you're going to whip through all the yin and yang meridians in 2 moves. Okay? Because obviously, if it's not yang, it must be yin. Okay, get it? So fire it down through the acetate. She holds it. This is all the yang meridians. Now you test your muscle. So she wakens. Okay, now turn the torch off. And you don't have to do this, but put the yin ones on now, and you'll see she won't weaken. We're trying to find out where she is, you see. Okay. So she's strong. So she's not in yin, she's in yang somewhere. Okay, so you don't have to do the second one, because if she's weakened in one, she must be in that one, she's not in the other. So now you get them out one at a time.
Yep.
So we're going to go through the yang ones now. Just put one colour on. Shout out which ones they are so we know.
Violet.
Violet, okay. So you should on these have a meridian with them.
Indigo.
Does this tell you the meridian?
No. Oh yes, it does. Small intestine.
Small intestine, okay. It's
Indigo,
the light.
Small intestine.
So what I've done with the new batch is I put the meridian onto them. So if you've got the old batch, which we did in the summer, all you've got to do is put a felt tip on there and tune it in. But we'll give them to you today anyway.
So we've got blue gallbladder.
Good one, the gallbladder. Best people have gallbladder.
This is green, right way around, CV.
Conception vessel.
Oh, yeah.
We know it's in here because you weakened to the batch.
Yellow large intestine. Orange
triple warmer.
Triple warmer, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, so she's in orange. So she's in triple warmer, which means she's not getting her metabolic rate up. Okay, triple warmer is associated with the thyroid, the metabolism. Are you tired? Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. It's a silly question, isn't it? You ask anybody that, are you tired? Who comes in and says, I've got so much energy, it's unbelievable. I want to get rid of some. So, what we're going to do now, if you get the spleen one out, because she should, if her definitive meridian is the spleen, she should weaken to the spleen, shouldn't she? But she didn't in the therapy localized in the clear, and if you get the spleen one out, which is where she should be, you should find that she won't weaken to that one at this stage, because she's not in spleen time. Okay, so what are we going to do now is we've got to just tune her in. Okay, we've got to take her out of this nonsense of the triple warmer, that she's got involved in the triple warmer and she can't get out of it. Okay? She's stuck in this pattern. She feels, do you feel out of sorts, out of time? This is what patients tell you, that they don't feel right. They feel they're disjointed from it. They're not within themselves. Their rhythms aren't working. So, interestingly, you can do it either way. Either with the triple warmer on there, which is the one where she is at the moment, or the spleen. So if you give me the spleen one, we have to have a reference point. And I've tried this with both ways, and both seem to work. But in a way, it makes sense that we'll do it with the spleen, because that's where she should be. Okay, so I'm just going to tap the definitive point, this suprachiasmatic nucleus again, just like we did for tuning the now time in. So basically what we're tuning is the deeper circuits in the body, in other words, the 5 elements, as opposed to the superficial meridians. So again, 60 taps, twice a second, and she's got the colour of the spleen. Yes, the green. Well, it's a turquoise. It's turquoise green. Yeah, it's the opposite to that. So she should be tuned in now. Now test her with the spleen, and you should find, hey presto, she's weak now. Test her with the triple warmer, and you'll find she's in time now. So we've taken her out of that nonsense of being in triple warmer, and we now put her back into spleen in a definitive meridian, and now we can treat her. We can say, right, let's do the eye positions and find out what the cause of her problem is. So we found her definitive meridian. The next thing we've got to do is find the definitive cause, and then the definitive answer to the problem. Okay, Finn.
Do you have to really do the thing with the torch?
No.
The definitive meridian, fully put the spleen on and tap her in?
Yes, you can do, but you'll never find out where she was. You'll get now to trying to buy a torch. The only thing is, if you don't do the torch, you won't find out where she was, and it doesn't. It's somewhat academic, but it is involved the fact that she's triple warmer. You can tell her what's wrong, if you like, but you do need the torch for the treatment if the treatment comes up that she needs some light therapy. Because basically, if she shows up to low ATP, ATP is energy, and therefore she's going to need energy putting in, and the best way of putting that in is the light. Okay. So what we're going to do now, or a bit after this, is we're going to give her the light a bit later on. But we want to find out where her problem is, what the cause. So we know she should be in the spleen. We know she's veered off to the triple warmer. What we want to do now is to find out why she's veered off. Okay, what is it? Yes, do the spleen in the clear now. Yeah, because she's tuned back in, yeah. She weakened to the colour. The colour and the spleen therapy is the same. Okay, it's the same thing. Okay, she's perfect now. She's just as she should be. She's come out of adaptation, and she's displaying everything in the clear. Okay, so this is wonderful. Now we can find out what's wrong. Otherwise, a lot of the things that we've been finding out what was wrong will be about her adaptation, and we'd be spending all the time treating her triple warmer and getting nowhere, or we might be getting somewhere, but she wouldn't actually get right until we treat her spleen. And all we've got to do is find out now with the spleen what it is that's driving her out into the, yeah. So we just bring her out of adaptation, and now we can treat her, okay? And now it's tea time.
Yeah.
Ingenious, that's why, you've seen it. That's why you have to cover it, because it's G-E-N. It's not emphasized on there, but it's emphasized on here. It's the genie aspect, yeah. Well spotted.
Sometimes they actually do show up to the meridian in the clear.
Yes, as Sam said, some people are in the meridian in the clear. So in which case you don't treat them.
But they won't stop the colour of the meridian.
Ah.
That's the difference.
Yes, so there are a few people who are, okay, and once you've done this, they should stay in that, then next time they come, they'll be in their definitive meridian, unless something's happened. They've had a chinky meal in Beaconsfield.
Yes.
Yeah, they may go out, this is my model, Jill, that she's liver. So it was very disappointing when she went to a kidney, I knew it was serious. First of all the kidney went, then the back went with the psoas, and then the foot went. I was in trouble.
You were.
Yes. It means I can't have another chinky meal for a long time. Okay, so, yes, Sam, you're quite right. Sometimes what you find is people show up in the clear, and they don't always show to the colour, so you still got to tap them in. Okay, but as Sam said, is it always, if it's a yang problem, is it always a yin and vice versa? No. that therapy is always the opposite. So in Jill's case, her therapy is me. So to treat a liver, she needs a gallbladder color, and I need a liver color. Okay, so you do the opposite will be the color, but it could be another yang or another yin. It's not always the same. I think you found that as well, because you thought, oh, it'd always be if there's a yang problem, it's probably deviated here. No, it's not necessarily. It can be another yin or another yang. But what you've got to do is tap them back in, and it's very quick. We just spent ages doing it, but the whole process is very quick. So all you need is the stack of cards and a torch. But you don't have to do that. You're quite right. You can do it just tapping, but you won't ever find out that way where they've gone to, because what we should have done there is when we discovered your triple warmer, there will be problems in the triple warmer. You'll start to show thyroid problems, and you'll get a weak teres minor and things. But we've messed it up now because we've treated you. So we'll do after the break, we'll do somebody who we haven't messed up yet and show you what the adaptation symptoms are. What? They're not there. Okay. Sophie, could we have you? Sophie's going to be a challenge because Sophie, you came coming in about 50, wasn't it? Yes, good. Okay. See, when we used to work together, I could keep you to 100, but since you worked on your own, Sophie, you dropped to bits. Okay. So, well, let's pop the leg up and take a strong indicator muscle. Have you done your definitive meridian?
Yes.
Yes. So if you touch on there with one hand, what is the definitive meridian?
Bladder.
Oh, bladder. Okay. So the other finger on the bladder point. Okay. So what you should find then is the bladder goes weak. Good. Okay. Now, stay on the bladder on its own, but no definitive point. And let's see if she weakens. If she weakens in the clear to that, then we don't need to do anything, but she doesn't, okay? So now we get the stack of cards out, take the hand off the bladder. We need to get to a bit of tummy. So we know that she should be in the bladder, okay? So that means, when's your birthday, Sophie? November. So go back from November, you come to February really. So she was a winter conception. And bladder would be then, it'll be 3 to 5 in the afternoon. The primary, yes, okay, so now do the complementaries or the yin ones. So it's in there. So we didn't need to do that, because if she's strong on the yang ones, she must be a yin one, okay? But academically, it's good to do it. Okay, so now put one on. Read us out which ones you're doing.
Oh, yes. Complementary red, spleen.
Spleen. Just say spleen colour, that's fine. Okay. So test her there. Oh. We've got somebody who's not a spleen. That's good. Okay.
Spleen. Liver.
Liver. Remember, this is the state of adaptation. The meridian she's adapting into.
Governor vessel.
Governor vessel. Think of these things not necessarily by the name of the organ, but the physiological function of the organ.
Kidney.
What it does. Kidney. Eliminates water-soluble toxins. Oh.
Kidney.
Okay, kidney. All right. Now take the colour off. Okay, now we can tap her in, but before we tap her in, let's see what that adaptation's done to her body. So now let's test the psoas, shall we? So reel out, there's 3 kidney muscles. We've got psoas on one side. A bit further out for 45 degrees, that's it. Okay, and push up and over. Whoa. Okay. We'll soon get rid of that nonsense. As soon as we bring her back to bladder, she'll be strong. But have you been getting backaches, Sophie? Yeah. Yes, you should be, because you're walking disaster. If you've got bilateral psoas, you're just a matter of time when you step off the curb and it all goes on you, doesn't it? A lot, because there's just... I was amazed when I first did dissection work at St. Thomas. Julian, did you do dissection at the BSO? Came in after that, I think, because I was teaching anatomy with Brian. And we used to go down on, I think it's Wednesday afternoons to St. Thomas. And the psoas muscles are like that. They're like bungee jumping, elastic. They are so big. And I couldn't believe, and on a cadaver, of course, you just cut them and they stay like that. That's the Chateaubriand or fillet steak. And they stay like that. But in reality, they're like catapult elastic, that thick. And then you can begin to think, no wonder they hold you upright. They're holding that lordosis, which is what the books always tell you. They hold the lordosis. And they externally rotate the hip joints, okay? And those are balanced with the internal rotators and the erector spinae. So you can imagine if you're bilaterally weak, this is a tremendous support. The core, which must be what do you do? Pilates, that's it. Tries to strengthen up. But they wouldn't be able to strengthen Sophie because it's neurological. It's not because she's not exercising. Try the iliacus. That's the same position, 45 degrees of abduction and adduction. Now bring it up to 60 degrees of flexion there. That's it. Right, now try that one. Oh, that's the ballet dancer one, isn't it? When the hip clicks. When you get that clicking hip with some people, that's always the iliacus. It's when you get above 45 degrees. Right, now try, what's the other muscle? The kidney one is the upper trap. Okay, try her upper traps. So head and ear, shoulder and ear together, slight rotation to the opposite side.
Okay, so hold together.
Oh! So what's she going to get? She's going to get neck problems as well, isn't she? Okay, because if you've got no upper traps there either. Okay, so let's get her back into where she should be. So tell us a bit more about do you have any symptoms of, because if you're coming in at 50 with your epigenetics, and tell us a bit about what sort of symptoms you sort of have been feeling. Hormonal? Not sleeping, yeah. Possible infection, yeah. Okay. Right. So you can put on. I put the bladder on, but we can do the other one. Put the bladder on. Okay. So what we're doing, that's in reference to that. Do you want to tap her? Do the whole thing through. Don't be shy. Give it a good wallop. You're all too gentle. Yes, use a shoe. That's right. Or the bottle. It's the difference between an osteopath and a chiropractor and nutritionists, and they don't know.
There we go. That should be 60.
Yeah, is that 60?
I counted them.
Oh, right. Okay.
And did a few extra.
Okay. So what's she on? She's on bladder there. So let's see if she weakens to the bladder in the clear now. No need to touch. No need to worry.
With the
okay.
Hold.
No, tap a bit longer. I think you didn't tap hard enough. I think tap a bit harder. Cut the time down. Tap harder.
Sorry.
Maybe that's why it's only 60 with me and longer with other people. I think you should hear sound when you do it, to tap it hard enough to feel that there's something not much in there. So, well, remember I got low acid alkaline, so there's probably not much in there.
Right, let's try this, Sophie.
Okay.
Full, Sophie. Hold. Yeah.
Yes, that's better. Now she's there.
Yeah.
Okay, now take the file off, take that off, and stick on the kidney one now, because that's where she was, and hopefully she's not there anymore.
Hold.
Good. Now test her psoas.
Okay. Hold up. Oh, look at that. Yeah.
See? Amazing, isn't it? So she's wandering around, a walking time bomb, not knowing why she's collapsing in the heat, or about to collapse in the heat, when she needn't have anyway. It's just a matter of tapping her, and she's back to where she should be. Okay, so now we can treat her as a bladder. So just put your finger on the bladder, Sophie, and now you should find that that point will weaken in the clear, because then now she's home to where she should be. All right? Good. So we'll finish you off after the break.
More tapping.
Yes, you can workshop it. Yeah. You've got to get the colours first. They're busy cutting them out, I hope. 24 hours they're there cutting, or you could get a pair of scissors and cut them out. I want to show you how you cut the acetates out. Those of you who got acetates before, you can still use those, but you just want to write on with a felt tip pen what the meridians are associated with them. Okay, so the biophoton colour should be the same as the definitive meridian. That's what we said. If the positive biophoton challenge does not cross therapy localized to the definitive meridian, then the meridian is out of sync. Okay? So place the positive biophoton acetate on the patient and tap the point 60 times at 2 hertz. Should now synchronize to the definitive meridian. So that's what we did. So we brought her back into where she should be. So if you imagine, in Sophie's case, the time that she was conceived was between 3 and 5 in the afternoon, because she was conceived in, birthday's November, was it? Okay, so she was conceived in February, okay, which is definitely winter time. Okay, so it would be 3 to 5. In this country you were conceived? Yes. Well, it could be, that mum was away somewhere. But anyway, it's bladder. So at that particular moment, the bladder had more energy in it. This is why it's your definitive. That's why it's going to be your one, that's where your book of life was written, okay, at the bladder meridian time. And that's what you'll fight all your life, if you like, to try and get back and keep into that sync, because that's your body, your true body clock, if you like, is around the bladder. Now, we know that there's certain emotions involved with meridians and certain brain chemicals and so on. And these are things you sometimes have to deal with. You have to adapt. Can you ever change? I don't know. Will I always be a bladder? Will I always be racked with guilt and blame? Jill says yes. She said, I knew you were full of guilt and blame the moment we met. So maybe it's in the genes. Or is it deeper than the genes? It's actually in your constitution. So now you know when you were conceived, you can now explain why you think emotionally in the way that you do, which is thinking emotionally with the subconscious emotions involved with you at that particular time. Did you choose it? That's the next thing. Who chose to, come into this world at that particular time is interesting. Did that sperm have that little extra push, or there was something delaying it? You could have been a different person altogether. Sophie might not have ever been born a bladder. She could have been born a kidney. She could have been racked with anxiety and fears. So, but who makes that decision? It's just, is it the luck of the draw of how fast that sperm and that egg is coming down the fallopian tube and the sperm's going up? Because, some of those, the boys swim faster than the girls, don't they? So the boys ran out of steam, obviously in your case, because you were born a girl. So it must have been an X chromosome boy who was a bit sluggish, but she got there in the end, to get there.